As Europe grapples with the second wave of COVID-19, many countries are now rushing to impose fresh restrictions. But how are these regulations panning out in the much fluid border of UK and Wales? Our next report has the answers.
The ancient border between England and Wales is divided by a small footbridge. But since coronavirus hit Britain and made governments in the UK and Wales impose different rules, the boundary has become far more tangible. Residents say that the border didn't matter before, but the pandemic has changed everything. The small town of 3,000 inhabitants sits in a valley 130 kilometres from Cardiff. In Wales, a 17-day lockdown began mandating people to stay at home except for very essential purposes. However, across the River Thames in the English county of Shropshire, people are still able to move around freely.
It is confusing, very confusing, because we're right on the English border, Welsh border. England is just down by the railway station, which is just a few steps down. Yes, it's been a funny time really. People don't know where they're supposed to go, where they can go, where they can't go.
It is not the first time restrictions have differed. For nearly a week, the Welsh government has banned people from COVID-19 hotspots in England crossing the border. Earlier in the year, when the nationwide lockdown in the UK was being eased, people were afraid to come to Wales, where restrictions were stricter.
The biggest disruption is to the tourist and hospitality industry. So cafes like this and the pubs will have to close, only allowed to do takeaways, and obviously with half term coming up, the school holidays, there was a lot of trade coming our way that sadly we'll have to forego.
Britain has been the worst hit country in Europe in the pandemic, with more than 44,000 dead and cases surging again after a summer lull. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has stuck with more localised lockdowns, targeting areas with the highest number of cases. But Welsh First Minister Mark Drakeford announced that his nation of around 3 million people would go back into a lockdown. The scattered approach to restrictions has left some businessmen grumbling as they find themselves dealing with confused customers. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Co-presented by Skoda, simply clever.